And we are live. So, welcome to episode 190, 190
Damn.
of An American Werewolf in New Jersey. I am the American Werewolf. In the house tonight, we've got Eric from Hey Internet. Eric here. What's happening, man? Good to see you.
Glad to be back. Glad to always be here, especially with tonight's subject. I'm very excited.
Yeah, man. You know, I just kind of woke up. I woke up around 5:30, 6 o'clock, and, I try to make a habit where, I don't go right for my phone. I saw someone say once, just, don't do that.
Mm-hmm.
But at some point, I reached for my phone, and I started scrolling through Facebook, and I saw this post on Facebook, which was the inspiration for today's stream.
Okay.
Because it just hit me in the fucking head like one of those old Austin Power judo chops, that, I have in my bio all this shit that I like to do, and it's horror and it's sci-fi and it's action thrillers, but it's also CBMs, comic book movies, and it's MMA, and, it's also pro wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't I take some fucking time to talk about pro wrestling? Because you and I talk about pro wrestling all the fucking time.
Yes, we do.
And you're sending me video clips from back in the day, and I'm sending you video clips from back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And, why not just fucking talk about it? So
I don't even remember what the episode was. I know it wasn't the episode we did with Jay, but there was one time I think we just went off like a Dr. D. Dave Schultz tangent. When he slept or he slapped the announcer.
Awesome.
Yeah,
that asshole. Yeah. God bless him. He fucking, that guy had it fucking coming, condescending prick.
Oh, yeah.
There was other instances where we've seen Vader grab some guy in Saudi Arabia.
Yep, he got in big fucking trouble then, yeah.
Yeah, he got arrested in Saudi Arabia, which is not a small thing, but, he was under protection from Vince, so, they probably just, don't do that again. Don't put us on the spot,
You should have known better.
Yeah, we can give you some fucking leeway, but don't put us on the spot.
I love that clip because when Vader grabs a guy by the shirt collar, Undertaker, he's just sitting there, didn't move a muscle. He's just like, you fucking idiot. You should have known better. I'm not gonna get involved.
Yeah. So before we get started on tonight's topic, which is what I wanted to talk about, I thought I'd take a minute to get into what my bona fides are, and we could share it with the audience because this is going to go up on Spotify and all these other places, and and so people don't think we're a bunch of fucking tourists. My wrestling background as a fan goes back to the days of Bruno Sammartino.
Okay.
And so I was there when Bruno was the champ. He was fighting guys like Ken Patera with the swinging neck breaker, and the days of Stan Hansen, and Classy Freddie Blassie, and the Grand Wizard, and all these guys coming around to the age of Backlund, who scared the shit out of me. Not Backlund, because Backlund, we were talking about this the other day, with a stud fucking Backlund.
Oh, God, yeah.
Physical fucking specimen. He was very underrated because he had that whole howdy doody thing going.
Yeah, he looked like Opie from, what was it, Andy Griffith.
Yeah, Opie that could break both your fucking legs.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was like that. Yeah, I saw him the other day, performing these feats of strength, and his quad muscles and his fucking hamstring.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus Christ. This guy's a beast, man. But he wasn't all, jacked up and juiced up.
He wasn't flashy.
No, he wasn't flashy about it at all. And it wasn't like a Luger or Hogan kind of build. And he didn't come off that way, sort of over the top. He, was very much like, the guy in your backyard or your neighbor. And so we went through the Hogan phase, the Iron Sheik, obviously, and the Macho Man, and Ricky Steamboat, and Roddy Piper, and Jimmy Snuka. This is how far back I go. And then somewhere around the late 80s, I think I hit college, and I kind of fell off for a couple of years. Life changes, and, suddenly your Monday nights are filled with different things. With me, it wasn't studying, unfortunately, so it took me a little while to get through college, but I did it. But then in the 90s, catching on again with the Monday Night Wars and the rise of a little-known promotion. I'm down here in South Jersey called ECW.
Oh, yes.
I got a chance to see the privilege to be in the ECW arena twice. To see guys like Rick Rude, Terry Funk, New Jack, and all these different guys. I don't want to name drop the one thing I don't want to do that,
right?
Because it just doesn't come off. It doesn't feel right. But
all good, dude.
Somewhere around around 2000, shit shifted again on me, and I sort of fell off. I fell off. Keeping a peripheral eye on things. And it's only recently in the past couple of years that I've started to have a resurgence in my interest and my love, because it is. I love professional wrestling. Before MMA, there was professional fucking wrestling, and this is what you'd watched. These were the fucking studs. These were the fucking fighters. The Undertaker. Fucking crazy George the Animal Steel. These Hell in a Cell things, these guys like Jesse the Body Ventura and Luger and Scott Steiner, when he became Big Papa Pump.
Yep.
Guys like the Big Show and Andre, the stud, Harlem Heat, these sorts of guys, Stone Cold. Before the Gracies were around, these guys were doing it, and fans were eating it up. And it's only recently that I've started to, immerse myself back into it again. My issue for me personally is that right now I only have streaming services. So I'm only getting access to Peacock, which is only doing 30-day delay on Raw and SmackDown. 30 days. I don't understand why. I get to see the pay-per-views. And then you've been connecting me with an app that I'm going to get on tonight. I'm going to get on it tonight. And I'll text you after it's done just to let you know, to confirm. But that's my background. It goes back a long way. There have been some gaps, but I'm back. And especially now, my third year of YouTubing, let's start incorporating some of this in here. Why don't you let people know what your background is in pro wrestling? And so, yeah.
I got into it through my dad. And I remember as a little kid, I had no interest in it. None of my friends watched it that I knew of because, it was kind of, in my generation, oh, you're in elementary school. You like wrestling, you're a loser type of thing. That shit's fake, that. But I knew my dad loved like the old NWA. I knew he loved Bruiser Brody and he loved Abdullah the Butcher, the mean guys that would kick your ass. But he was also a big Bob Backlund fan. He loved Bruno. He loved Don Morocco.
Sure.
So I remember, I will always remember this. I remember the first time I actually watched wrestling. I woke up, it must have been hot, so I was sleeping in the living room. I woke up and my dad and my uncle were watching a VHS. Someone must have gotten the pay-per-view. It was WrestleMania 6. Okay. That was the WrestleMania where it was Warrior versus Hogan and Warrior won the belt. First match I ever saw was Colossal Connection, which was two of the toughest motherfuckers in the world, Andre the Giant and Haku.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
And they lost the tag titles to Demolition. And when I saw first the size of Andre.
Oh, yeah.
And when he beat the shit, he bitch slapped Heenan at the end of that match. And then seeing like these colorful characters of Demolition with the studs on the tights, but then the face paint, I was hooked. And then I couldn't tell you how many times I literally just watched that VHS tape. How many times I saw Warrior. Warrior, as at my age, he was amazing because he was a comic book character come to life. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then when my dad, this was like my dad's way in. You know what I mean? Yeah. So Saturday night's main event all the fucking time. Superstars and All-American Wrestling on Sundays. And then primetime wrestling. My dad allowed me to stay up late on school nights on Monday nights to watch primetime wrestling because it was a fun variety show. That's where it had, McMahon and Hacksaw and Hillbilly Jim, and they were talking to, Heenan and Perfect and stuff like that. And it just steamrolled from there. And then I grew into where, the late 80s, early 90s, where they had, the over-the-top colorful characters, the goofy shit like Papa Shango putting curses on the Ultimate Warrior and stuff like that. The Undertaker. Hated him until he became a good guy, and then he's been my favorite ever since then. So, he's been my number one since, 91. Okay. And it just steamrolled from there. And then in high school, perfect age for me to be involved in the Monday Night Wars because that actually got me to watch Nitro. Sure. I remember because my dad would go in his bedroom at 7 to watch the first hour of Nitro. I wouldn't give a shit. I'd wait till 8 o'clock, and I was just strictly Raw. Well, one day my dad comes in the living room. He's like, "Dude, why aren't you watching wrestling?" Well, it's not on yet. Razor Ramon's on Nitro. So I flipped over, and that's when Scott Hall showed up. And then every Monday night, boom, 7 o'clock Nitro, then Raw. But I was always flipping the channel back and forth. And it just steamrolled from there. I'm still a huge fan. I've kind of dropped off with the recent stuff because I only have streaming services as well. But with IWTV, I have so many other outlets. But again, I also was into ECW. I remember ordering those VHS tapes from the ECW website, and that got me into Sabu, Terry Funk, because I didn't see old school Terry Funk. I saw a 53-year-old crazy Terry Funk. Tommy Dreamer, who's been a favorite of mine for decades. New Jack. The first time I saw Raven and the fucking Sandman coming out with a cake, that was my dad's favorite because he would come out smoking a cigarette and chugging a beer, that type of stuff. And it's just been a passion and just fun, a fun part of my life still to this day. I love talking. Dennis is in the chat. Dennis versus the World. He's a buddy of mine who, when we met, it was over wrestling on Twitter. And it's just, it opens up so many things, meeting new people and just enjoying watching two guys beat the shit out of each other. You know what I mean? Two women. Yeah.
Women beat the shit out. And then men beating up women and then women beating up men, fucking midgets.
Yes.
It's just.
I remember the day when midget wrestlers would always be biting the referees on the asses to, for the King Kong Bundy slamming that one at WrestleMania 3 or whatever.
Remember the Haiti Kid? Haiti Kid when on Saturday night's main event.
Piper and when Cowboy Bob shaved his head.
Yeah. And he's calling for Mr. T to help him. Help me, Mr. T. Help me. Yeah.
And what I loved is
let's get to some of the. Oh, go ahead.
One thing I want to say is what I also loved is how my taste changed as a little kid to now. Back then, I hated the heels. You always got to cheer for the good guys. But now I love Roddy Piper. I think Macho Man was the best when he was a heel. You know what I mean? That type of stuff. So it's just fun to see how different things are now. Yeah. Compared to when we were younger.
Your tastes mature. I have a newfound respect now later in life for Arn Anderson. Who was probably one of the greatest and most underrated heels of all time. And when you hear him explain that the WCW or the NWA television title was always supposed to be in the hands of a heel, it makes perfect fucking sense. Yep. I grew up watching it, and every fucking week this guy found a way to cheat and win. And it just pissed me off to no end. And now I look at it, through different eyes, and I'm like, wow, yeah. He's like, sorry, guys, it was always supposed to be a heel having the television title. And he was just a perfect fucking heel.
Oh, yeah.
Hold on. So let's look at some of these
comments
here. We got Verb saying, hey, what's happening, man? Thanks for stopping in. ECW, yeah, man. I was an hour, I'm down there in South Jersey, down by the Jersey Shore, Atlantic City. So we'd take the train into Philly and go see some ECW. It was great stuff. 3-year, congratulations. Thank you. I'm in my 3rd year. It hasn't quite been 3 years yet. I think January will be 3 complete years. But yeah, my 3rd year streaming. Andre, yeah.
I won't fuck with him, man.
I saw a video the other day where I forget who was. It was Jake Roberts, and he was telling a story about how Dick Murdoch and Blackjack Mulligan invited Andre down to their Midwest promotion, and then tried to cheat him out of money. And then Andre went to confront them about it, and apparently they had already decided that Blackjack Mulligan's 350 pounds. Dick Murdoch is 300 pounds. We can take this motherfucker. And apparently they tried to jump Andre, and he beat the living. He threw them both through plate glass windows. Then he hailed a taxi. Threw them both in the fucking trunk of the taxi. Have you heard this story before?
I haven't heard this one, no.
Threw them both in the trunk, closed the trunk, got in the taxi and said, take us to the hospital. He opens up the trunk, picks them both up by the fucking belt, and walks them into the hospital. He goes, fix up my friend and tell him I'll meet him back at the bar. Like he didn't hold the grudge. He just beat the shit out of him. He's like, "Give me my money, and we'll settle up later at the bar."
That's one of the best episodes of Joe Rogan is when Jake the Snake is telling Andre stories.
Oh yeah.
Oh, did you ever like the one where he was like Andre's driver? You know what I mean? And but one of my favorite Andre stories is why is it every time the show's over, the boys want to go to the bar, relax, why do everyone always want to pick on the Giant or the Island Boys? You know what I mean? They always had to fight the Barbarian or Haku. Well, Jake told this story. Andre's in the back, he wants to keep to himself. He's got like Tim White and just the usual boys with him. And somebody was heckling Andre. Threw a beer can at him, hit him twice. Andre just kind of shrugged it off. Third time's the charm. Beer can hits Andre. Andre gets up. Now, this is a drunken 7'4", 500-pound dude coming your way. I don't know if they didn't know how big Andre was, sitting down or not.
Yeah.
So apparently they escaped in their car. And they tried to get away, but Andre was holding on to the bumper. They couldn't pull away from it.
He deadlifted the car.
And what happened was they stopped. Andre then gets onto the side where the door is and then lifts it up and shoves it over. So they're still in the seatbelts, upside down in their fucking car. Cops are called. Cops show up, and they don't do anything to Andre, and they just look at the car. They look at the size of Andre, and they're just like, these guys started it. You're good. And they let Andre go back to the bar.
You can't get away with that now. You couldn't get away with that now. It's a completely different world. I'm not exactly sure for the better, but you couldn't get away with that now. But, that reminds me also, I started out watching this WWF.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometime around my teenage years, the programming in my area changed. Television program, and Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon, I think noon or something like that, or 1 o'clock, started to show NWA.
Okay.
And I got to see something completely different, a completely different tone.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't have that humorous tone.
Right.
It was Dusty Rhodes. It was Flair. That was the first time I saw Flair, and Flair for me is my GOAT. He's the GOAT for me. I'm just the greatest of all time.
Mm-hmm.
The Road Warriors.
Yes.
The Four Horsemen. So you had Sting, and back in I also had Saturday nights UWF with Cowboy Bill Watts. When it was the Blade Runners, Rock and Sting, it was Warrior and Sting, and all these, and sometimes you'd see like NWA guys there for some reason, they would show. It was just great. But that reminds me of what you were saying about the WCW, the Monday Night Wars, and the WWF. They had a different tone to it.
Yes.
They had and I was a hardcore WCW fan back when it came to those two promotions. Obviously, I love what WWF was doing back then. We've shared many videos and had many a laugh, but I loved those old WCW Nitro, the NWO, especially the formation of it. I've never seen anything like that before.
I was in high school, and we got that pay-per-view, and we never really got WCW pay-per-views until the NWO started invading. Yeah. So we had to get the Bash at the Beach, where it was Hall and Nash against the three WCW guys. And when Hogan came out, you should have heard my dad yelling at that fucking team, that stupid son of a bitch. And, it's beating up fans. This was back before the curtain was pulled. There was a fan trying to get in the ring. They don't show it on the network anymore. I still got the VHS. Hall and Nash, they're jumping on him, trying to knee him to keep him out because he wanted to fucking kill Hogan, throwing the trash in the ring. Time.
People took that shit. I actually got into it because of my mom. Who was into pro wrestling.
Okay.
So that was something that we were doing together on Saturdays. My dad's into watching, the Phillies game. He's reading a newspaper or some shit like that, or he's out, doing something with the car or some shit like that. And I'm watching fucking wrestling. Hold on a second. We got some more comments. We got Dennis versus the world. What's happening, man? Thanks for stopping in. I was a nerd back then, staying up late watching the syndicated shows. I'd take notes on a legal notepad, giving grades. Slept all day the next day. Okay. I'm sure your teachers didn't appreciate that. The gorgeous ladies of wrestling, Verb is talking about. That was something too. It probably doesn't get its just due.
No.
For its contribution to bringing women into wrestling. I mean,
that's where Ivory came from. Yeah, if you remember Ivory, she was one of the Glow Girls. Yep.
Yeah, and women now, I mean, you and I, that's all we ever talk about is Rhea Ripley.
Oh,
you know, I mean, not just from being a fucking hottie, but I mean, she's a fucking stud.
Yes.
You know, she is just a fucking stud, man. I mean, she's just picking girls up and slamming them. And that match at WrestleMania with Charlotte Flair, one of the best things I've seen in a very long time. Giving grades is awesome, Dennis. It was before Meltzer and the Star System was to pro wrestling. Yeah. All right, Andre. The cops knew not to mess with him.
Nope.
Dark Hogan was crazy. My uncle was so mad. He went, nobody had ever, it was unfathomable. It was unfathomable that, like, what, you know, it didn't make any sense, you know.
And what was great about Hogan being a heel, it wasn't just him being a bad guy. He was a chicken shit. That's what made it good.
Yeah,
he was always hiding behind Nash and Hall. That's why he got the big show. And that's what made him great.
Yeah, everybody else was gatekeeping for him. Everybody else was gatekeeping for him, and like nobody ever got to. Luger got to him once. Goldberg, you know, every once in a while someone would get a punch, but then for a while there, it was just whoever you thought was going to go up against them ended up flipping. And you're like, get the fuck out. You know, come on. You know, come on. Yeah. And then it would end. It would like end on that, you know, for Monday. And what the fuck, you know.
Or I remember the one time, you know, that he got a clean loss other than, you know, Goldberg and Luger, and, you know, they didn't get the belt back in a fucking week or something. It's like when this was Bischoff is now involved. You know what I mean? Eric Bischoff. Yeah. Roddy Piper beats Hogan clean in the middle of the ring with a sleeper hold. And then the very next, they say, oh, well, it wasn't a title match. So they still were able to keep Hogan with the belt. That type of shit.
That was great until it wasn't.
Yeah.
That was one of the greatest things that ever happened until it wasn't. Okay, so the reason the big thing that I wanted to get into here, and you know, it's taking us 20 minutes, but that's why we're talking about wrestling. So was something I saw today, and I saw it on the Pro Wrestling World in my Facebook feed. Give me a second, and I'll bring it up. And
sure.
I'm not taking a position on this, but it's the subject of the stream. Should Chris Jericho retire from in-ring performances? And somebody brought this up from the Pro Wrestling World on Facebook. This is from a couple of days ago. And you can see they've got sort of an unflattering picture of Jericho. My understanding is this was from a few years ago.
Okay.
And that Jericho has since he had kind of a health scare. He put on some weight, had kind of a health scare. Jericho is 52.
Yeah.
So, you know, my understanding is, and I'll get into some other things a little later, that he's gotten himself back into good shape, good fighting shape again. But basically it says, should Chris Jericho just retire? He's a shadow of his former self in the ring. Certain people are only pretending he's awesome because he's in AEW. Those same people would chant, quote, please retire, end quote, if it was in a WWE ring. And then it's hashtag Florida Man. Now, the Pro Wrestling World, I put a link in the description, and I also put a link for Eric's YouTube channel, has a podcast that is on Spotify. So the link to the Spotify podcast is there in the description. Go check these people out. I don't just want to rip off their content. And the link to Eric's YouTube is in there as well. So if you're checking it out, go give him a sub. He's got some really good stuff on there.
Thank you.
And then there was another one on there, and I kind of wanted to follow it up with this, and then we could just kind of generate some conversation.
Sure.
All right, here we go. And there's on the left, and then there's the new Jericho on the right, you know, looking much leaner. He's in fighting shape. And it says, this is from yesterday, or a couple days ago as well. What does Chris Jericho bring to wrestling today? It certainly isn't the match quality. Chris Jericho of the last few years has more duds than wins. Yes, he had a hell of a match with Cody Rhodes in 2019, but his match with MJF is the worst MJF pay-per-view match you can see. Fact is, the best matches that feature Chris Jericho now are multi-man matches like Blood and Guts. I'm not exactly sure that's fair. You know, Jericho is 52.
Right.
You know, so I'm not sure I'm sure the writer isn't scrapping in the ring.
Right.
so on and so forth. But it poses an interesting question, which we'll get to. So in the ring, he hasn't brought that out since his feud with Kevin Owens, maybe New Japan work. He does still have a good match here and there, so he might not be on the last page of his career just yet. That said, he's still amazing on the mic. There are still lots of things he can offer. He can be and still is a great character, and there's no question about that. He's still a genius at reinvention, and even extended it to his faction that changes every couple of years. He still brings attention from the networks as they like him, so that helps a lot too. However, I can't imagine it won't be long before Chris Jericho retires from in-ring competition unless he really is the next Ric Flair, LOL. I absolutely love his AEW theme, just saying. And that's from David from PWW.
Okay.
So, I mean, I don't have a position on this, and I certainly don't want to disrespect Chris Jericho because I think he is one of the best to ever do it.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think that he quite gets the respect that he deserves in that GOAT status.
No, he doesn't.
Maybe in the coming years he kind of will. Maybe it's because he's still active. And still like a major player with these sorts of things. I remember Jericho. Let me just say this real quick. I remember Jericho going back to the ECW days. When he was Lionheart Chris Jericho, and this crazy fucking blonde guy from the Hart family dungeon was doing these crazy fucking moonsaws and just, working the mic. He was fucking hysterical. And then he came to WCW for a while. He wasn't there for very long, as I recall.
A handful of years.
He was there for, all right, so he was there for, yeah, because I remember, and I hate to say this, my number 2 all-time GOAT before the fucking hellish thing was Benoit.
Yeah.
And watching him work the mic on Benoit, who wasn't strong at all on the mic, and calling him a Chris Benoit, and all these different things was funny. And then to see him come to WWE as Y2J.
Yep.
So I've been following this guy for quite a while. He's 52 years old. He's got to be one of the best. What's your thoughts?
He was already in WCW when I got to know him, and he was like the opening guy. You know what I mean? The first couple matches, they'll throw him in when we need another guy for a 6-man tag. It wasn't until they let him be a heel. That's when his stuff came out. Again, shit-talking Chris Benoit. My favorite thing with Jericho in WCW was when he was feuding with Dean Malenko. And Dean Malenko was the man of 1,000 holds. Chris Jericho was like the man of 1,001. And what was great about Jericho, one of my favorite things he ever did with Jericho ever did, was when he right before the commercial, he had a list, and the paper was like a fucking mile long. He was reading off all the holds. He said armbar like 20 fucking times. And excuse me. Then they went to a commercial. And Jericho said this because he wanted to get the fans hot, pissed off. So he would just keep saying armbar to piss off the fans in the crowd. So when they came back to TV, they would be like wanting to fucking kill him. And then once he and it was great, he was always finding a way to get the TV title out, keep it on him. And Dean Malenko was always getting cheated out of it. So it gave Dean Malenko, who couldn't talk to save his life, but he could kick ass in the ring, gave him something to do, and people were cheering for Dean Malenko. You know what I mean? And when he did, and then he left, went to WWE with the Millennium Countdown.
Y2J.
And who do they throw him with? The Rock. He interrupts a Rock promo, and the Rock made him look like a fool. And what was great is I don't think Jericho gets enough credit for like his facial expressions. Yeah. He came out looking like a dork with like that, the Pebbles, Flintstones, ponytail, and just like the scowl on his face when The Rock was asking, "Who the hell are you?" type of thing. Yeah. He was so good. And what I don't get is, people, that article saying he should retire. He knows how to change with the times. And that's what's so good about him. He knows, hey, if this isn't working, or I've been doing this for so long, I'll go away, tour with my band for 6 months, come back totally reinvented, and it's like the Jericho of old again. Yeah. I think people will honestly appreciate Chris Jericho more when he is gone. And that's how it is. You don't appreciate what you have until you don't have it anymore. Yeah. Yeah. They're talking about the 6-man stuff. He's got to change his style, and there's nothing wrong with that. He can still get it. I don't watch AEW, so I can't judge.
Right.
But he's not the first person to do that, to switch to tag matches or something like that, to keep the longevity.
Yeah, I mean, he has to. He's not going to kill himself.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be unfair to ask him to do so.
Mm-hmm.
As you get older, your style has to be able to modify for longevity.
Yep.
I was just saying, somebody was saying something about Flair, and it was that video where he, by the time he got to the WWF after WCW and he started to parody himself,
mm-hmm. Yeah,
like the musical chairs, he just start wooing, for no reason. And then he'd start dancing, and that was when he'd get the fucking, it would go against him.
Yeah.
Somebody would say, wow, they really fucking misused him there. And I just said, you can't have the Ric Flair from the late 80s holding the tights on Brock Lesnar and the Big Show.
Right.
It has to change. It has to change in such a way that, it's still respectful to him.
Right.
But it's not so ridiculous that you're just like, I mean, what the hell is this? And the fans still love him.
Yeah.
Like there was this thing the other day where like the Big Show was going off about something and he just looks at him. He's like, he's all disgusted. Are you done?
Yeah.
And Show's like, don't do it, Rick. Don't let these people talk you into doing something stupid. And he starts taking off his Rolex, and like the Big Show just throws the fucking mic down. All right, come on.
Yeah. If I gotta do this, yep.
Yeah. Hits him like 2 or 3 times, and then he starts to do whoo, whoo, whoo. He starts to, and Show just clocks him one time, and he's just out.
Yeah.
But it's still Ric Flair. It's still Ric Flair, but it's an older Ric Flair. That's their self-realization.
Yeah, they're self-aware. And the thing is, with someone like Ric Flair, with someone like, say, like The Undertaker, or someone who's been around a long time like that, Jericho, I think they've earned it. You know what I mean? They've earned what they've done, changing these personas over the years. They've earned the fact that if they now, you know what? They can have a little fun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Flair, I wouldn't say a buffoon, but he was definitely more comedic when he was, backing up Triple H. You know what I mean? He would get his ass kicked out. It's Ric fucking Flair. You know what I mean? He's proved what he needs to do.
Right.
And
he doesn't have to go 60 minutes anymore.
Exactly. That's what I loved about Chris Jericho. This was before, when you weren't watching, when he finally came back and he did that team with Kevin Owens. Some of the best chemistry I've seen Jericho have in a long time. He would come back, and his gimmick at the time, he would come back. Everyone would be waiting. Where have you been? You've been gone for like 5 years. He wouldn't say a word on the microphone, even in the ring with the microphone in hand, for like his first 2 months, just to piss off the fans. You know what I mean? They teamed him up with Kevin Owens, and Jericho thought he was the star. And Owens would, hey, we're best friends. And then, Chris Jericho would take off his little towel, give it to Kevin Owens. And when Jericho wasn't looking, Owens would just, toss it behind his back type of thing. So it was like this little rivalry type of thing. And Jericho made it work because his comedic timing is so good.
Yeah.
On the mic. He is good in the ring. He is great on the mic, and he knows what works. He knows who he works well with.
It's amazing. You would think, well, no, I guess that's not true, but how few people actually get that good. Because like you can be a great in-ring performer. And, nowadays the athleticism is just off the fucking charts. I mean, you even look at somebody like one of those Paul brothers. That guy's a real fucking, they're both real athletes. They really are. And I think, they've almost both got a professional wrestling gimmick going. Just everybody wants to see them get their ass kicked. And they just keep paying money and showing up to see these guys get their ass kicked, and they kind of never do.
Right.
And so it's not a fluke anymore. This kind of thing. But to be able to just, do that thing on the mic that he does with the timing, how hard that is.
Yeah.
So I think it's something that you just kind of naturally kind of have to have.
Yeah.
To be a Dusty Rhodes, to be a Ric Flair, to be a Roddy Piper. Personally, Hogan just kind of crammed it down your throat.
Right.
He kind of crammed, what you gonna do, training prayers, vitamins, these sorts of things, that kind of stuff. But I mean, the real guy, like maybe Eddie Guerrero, who was another one who was just, like priceless on the mic, these sorts of things.
Just had to give them the chance.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you would have guys that were great in-ring performers, but like you said, sucked. Malenko. Malenko couldn't talk his way out of a wet paper bag.
No.
Benoit wasn't far behind. One of the greatest in-ring performers of all time.
Yep.
And I don't even want to put an asterisk next to it because at this point, there's no point.
Right.
But he couldn't talk to save his life.
No.
And so he was like the strong, silent type. And when you get somebody who can put both of those things together, The Rock was another one. Stone Cold was another one.
And that's what they always say. They always say, what makes a good babyface is a great heel. Hogan couldn't talk. You know what I mean? He had his, his usual stuff, prayers, vitamins, what you're going to do. But you give him Roddy Piper, who will shit talk you under the fucking rug. You know what I mean? And that made it believe. And what was great is, like you said, with like the Paul brothers, you want to see them get their ass kicked. They never do. But if you don't buy that one ticket on Monday, and that's the day you miss it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, the athleticism has improved.
Yeah.
Now everybody is just a freak fucking athlete. Especially, I mean, you get maybe like the top tier, somebody like Brock Lesnar, who's been doing it for 20 years. I don't know what the wrestling community, overall opinion of Brock Lesnar is, but the guy is just, I think he's just a genetic freak.
Yeah.
Insane athletic ability after 20 years of this. He's still doing the craziest shit. I mean,
and what I like about Brock now, since he's kind of come out as, a lot of people call him Country Brock or Cowboy Brock, you know what I mean? He looks like these last two returns, he looks like he's finally having fun. And I think that improves it a lot. You know what I mean? It improves what he does in the ring. He's not just there to kick ass and leave. You know what I mean? He can do that, but now you can tell he seems like he's putting in more of an effort. Like, I don't remember who he fought.
Cody Rhodes?
I don't remember who it was. It was the match like at SummerSlam when he had like the fucking tractor trailer come out and like lift up the ring. I think it might have been Roman Reigns. Like he was having a blast, that type. And it was good to see. It makes for a good match.
Yeah. But I mean, getting back to Jericho, it never looks like he had to strain. It never looks like he always made it look easy. From his early 20s. I mean, I'm going back probably 30 years now, close to, following this guy, and he always makes it look easy. Hold on a second. We got some more comments here. We got Dennis saying definitely not recently. Yeah, that photo. I think that's a little unfair that they put that in there, an old photo like that.
They do that all the time.
It's the internet, and that's the way it works. Drive a little traffic.
It helps the narrative if they're writing something negative.
Yeah, he's back in shape. Fozzy is going on tour soon, I believe. Yeah, that's right. He's got his own band.
Yep.
Fozzy's been around for a long time.
Yep.
I love a good live stream podcast. If I start commenting too much, no, man. Say whatever you want to say. It's always welcome here. You never know that the comment that you put down might steer the conversation in a different direction. So this is a stream with a completely organic conversation. Yep. We come in with a couple of bullet points. Eric's been with me almost from the beginning, and we just kind of go. So, yeah, it's all good.
We love the interaction.
Yeah. Class move. I don't know what that means. Can you clarify that one? 52 is like 72 in wrestling, dog. Yeah, I'm sure that's probably true. But I mean, I don't, necessarily want to see, a 52-year-old guy still trying to do the same things when he was 22.
What helps with Jericho, though, is he takes those sporadic breaks to go tour with Fozzy. You know what I mean? Yeah. He's not always slamming himself on the mat.
Yeah. Hold on a second. At 52, Jericho is a much better wrestler than Hulk Hogan during his NWO run, 44 years old at the time, I believe. Jericho shouldn't be vying for a world title, but he's still very capable. Yeah. Yeah. Because, I mean, a world title will put him constantly on the road.
Right.
A world title will, he'll never get off the road. And, I saw an interview with him recently, spending more time with his family. I think his two girls are grown now, or he has children and they're grown now. So, that's it's a little different now. In the ring.
I think he was finishing the comment.
Still very capable in the ring. Yeah,
Yeah.
still very capable. Yeah. Yeah, and Verb is agreeing with you. Face green smiling, face green smiling, face green smiling.
Oh, he posted a bunch of emojis. That's what that is.
Oh, okay. Like Spike, y'all. Legends get tenure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that seems fair. Jericho is a great non-wrestling interview too. Yeah, he can almost do stand-up.
I listened to his podcast. His podcast Talk is Jericho is really good.
100% about the Pauls. Yeah, 100%. Those guys are the real deal. It's not a fluke anymore. It's been too many years. Macho Man was my guy as a kid. Yeah, who doesn't love the Macho Man? Yeah, totally. Even the females are assassins today. Yeah, these women are, they're really something. I have to get into this. I have to find a way to see. I'm curious because, like I said, I'm posing this question without opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen Jericho in a while in the ring, so I offer no informed opinion. I'm just sort of generating the conversation. But I'm genuinely curious about this AEW. And again, I try to work around to get TNT, but it wouldn't work.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't get it. And I think Discovery has something called AEW because I have a Max HBO.
Mm-hmm.
And so that comes with Discovery. And they have something called AEW All Access.
Okay.
But it's like behind the scenes. Like I want to see some matches.
Right.
I want to see some matches. Because, I mean, if we're talking about Jericho at 52, and again, I'm not setting this up with an opinion either, we got to talk about Sting.
Yeah, he's still doing it.
He's doing 60s.
He's doing it with Jericho. And the thing is, I'm don't watch AEW, but when you get away from the people that are hating on AEW just because they're WWE boys, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Some people can't fucking separate that. Wrestling's wrestling. Sit down, shut up, watch the shit. Yeah. I'm hearing nothing but praise from what Sting is being able to do at his age.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's great. And with Jericho, the whole retirement thing, here's what it is. If he can still do it, whether it's tag matches or not, if he can still put on a good performance, if he can still bring you in with that microphone talk, that shit talk. I'm pretty sure he's a heel right now. Why? Use him to your advantage. Because if he retires, you'll never be able to see him do his thing. You want to see that shit talker get his ass beat. But you know what? Sometimes he's got to beat the good guy. You know what I mean? Yeah. And if he can still do it and make it believable, make it entertaining, not to knock Ric Flair, but like his last match or like the retirement match, we're not going to get into.
Yeah.
But if Jericho can still do it, whether he's the Jericho of old or not, who really cares? If he can still do it in an entertaining way, in a believable way, I say why leave? Why retire?
If he's an asset to the company, and it's sounding clearly from what people are saying in the chat, he still is.
Mm-hmm.
And he's still able to do it in a way that's, again, believable. Without taking unnecessary risks,
right?
To himself, not in a Mick Foley kind of way.
Correct.
That kind of thing, because I remember those stories where Foley would say that he was driving his family one time and then he couldn't remember how to get home.
Right.
Like, and he's told his wife, and his wife was like, "You're going in there to tell Vince," and he was like, once Vince heard that, he was like, "No, you're done."
Yep.
Which I guess he still came back a couple of times sporadically, but.
Yeah, it wasn't like headshots and stuff like that it was before.
Yeah. So, I mean, 52 is not a retirement age from pro wrestling. 52 is not a retirement age from anything nowadays. 52 is not a retirement age. So, I guess if he's continuing to do it, let him do it. And then when he's ready, he can step down. Verb says, Sting is such a goat. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I remember Sting from 30 years ago at UWF, the Blade Runners. Obviously, his knees aren't quite what they once were. Man, that guy had a vertical jump like nothing I had ever seen before.
That's Stinger splash.
Yeah, man. And he would just jump up in the air and come down with that fucking fist on people. You're like, holy shit.
Yep.
These guys were scary. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I remember like when my dad would watch, when it was WCW, but that was before, I started watching, when he had the bleach blonde hair, they called him Surfer Boy Sting, from Venice Beach with and him and Luger, were the pretty boys type of thing. Yeah. I remember he's changed over. He's another one that changed his persona. You know what I mean? He was the Blade Runner, and then he became Surfer Sting, and then he dyed his hair brown, and he was still a good guy, but he was he willing to break the rules a little bit, but he was still that ultimate good guy.
Yeah.
And then when the NWO got involved, and he was hanging out in the rafters like the Crow for a fucking year. And then he joined Wolfpack, and he painted himself red. He was a more happy-go-lucky Sting. And then when he went to TNA, and he completely lost his mind, he was trying to act like the Joker. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He kept it going and kept himself relevant. And because it's Sting, you knew he can make it work, and he always did.
Another one that just had everything.
Yes.
He was a complete package. And dependable and reliable. Never any craziness that you heard of outside of I guess what the everyday craziness is that is professional wrestling. Just another solid professional, still doing it.
Yep.
Still doing it. I couldn't tell you why. I guess it's in. I think for some of these guys,
in their blood.
I don't. Yeah, it's in the blood. I was trying to think of a way to say it that didn't sound like a put down.
Yeah.
It's just in the blood.
Yeah.
It's just in the blood. It is that way. So Jericho stays. I think that's the conclusion that we've arrived at on this channel.
Yeah.
I think so. I think that's fair. All right. This seems like a good place to bring it to a close. Is there anything that you wanted to get to before that we did not?
Not specifically. I mean, I just had fun talking wrestling, but with Jericho, it's just, I think he's even now. I mean, once he does officially retire, he's first in ballot for that Hall of Fame that they have. You know what I mean? The WWE, and he left on good terms because even in AEW. He still did the Stone Cold podcast, and that's on the network. You know what I mean? Yeah. So there's still that working relationship. He doesn't need to prove anything anymore. He's been world champion many times, many places, keeps reinventing himself. When he is gone, it's going to suck. You know what I mean? But he's got that legacy, and that's one good thing about like Peacock with the network. He will always be around for new generations to see how good he was in the ring, but then when they just gave him that mic and they just said, go for it. And it helps with him being, in the music business. He wants to be a rock star, so he can still be that rock star guy in the ring, and that helps too.
It's one of those things that because of, social media and things like that, so many of these stories, and I want to expand in this direction, are now being recorded. Mm-hmm. So many of these wrestlers are being interviewed by channels and podcasts, and so many fans out there, and so many of these stories are being recorded for history. As these guys move into, the later years. I remember when WrestleMania was coming around, I was just watching like 2 weeks worth of interviews that somebody had gotten from Greg the Hammer Valentine.
Oh, really?
And he's just, if you type out Greg the Hammer Valentine into your YouTube, there's this one where he's just sitting on this couch and like someone puts a mic in front of him and it's broken into clips. There's like 100 clips with a different story. Every one of them are great. He seems like the nicest guy in the world. I got 2 boxes of behind me. I'm going to try to do either this weekend or next. I'm going to send you all them shoot interviews so you can hear some of those stories. You'll get a kick out of what I'm sending you. I'm going to keep it a secret, but yeah, you'll dig it. Okay. All right. Yeah, that'd be cool. Very nice. Thank you very much, man. Absolutely. All right. I guess this is as good a place as any to bring it to a close. Eric, do you have anything you want to plug? Since we got a couple new people in the chat, you can sub to my Hey Internet Eric here YouTube channel. I've taken a couple. Yep. Thank you. I've taken a couple weeks off just to get away from it. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I'm coming back starting next week. And lately I've been reviewing a lot of shitty movies and I'm sick of it. I'm going to, for the longest time, other than like the occasional request, I'm going to do nothing but movies I want to talk about. Good. Like I'm doing Rocky, Rambo, eventually Mission Impossible. Thank you for subbing, Verb. But one thing I did think it was funny, and I'm going to do this, and I think you got a kick out of it too.
I'm a 40-year-old guy. You see how I am. I love wrestling. I love horror movies. Everyone online is bitching about that fucking Barbie movie. I'm gonna sit down just to do it.
You go see it.
And I'm gonna watch it, and I'm gonna review it as an adult watching a fucking Barbie movie. But I'm like, to see what all the complaining is. So other than that, I'll be doing nothing but movies I want to watch. But again, you can also follow me on Twitter. Same name. Hey, Internet Eric here.
Dennis says later. Thanks, Dennis, for stopping in.
Thanks,
we'll
Dennis.
be doing some more wrestling, and I want to do it with frequency. I don't want to do this like every other month or something like that.
Yeah.
We just got to come up with some other topics.
Absolutely.
These sorts of things as I begin to catch up a bit more. So yeah, I'll start that tonight. All right. For this channel, here I am. Like the video, please. Leave a comment for everyone who catches it on a replay. Sub to the channel. One-word comment is fine. It helps drive traffic this way. We'll be back next week covering a wide variety, whether it's sci-fi or relevant content for what's going on these days in film. I probably should do a video of that stupid talk to me video just to tell people to stay away from it. But these shitheads won't listen. The minute you tell them it's shitty, they got it. It's like, they just throw money at people. So
yep.
For what that's worth. All right. I think that's it for us. And we will see you all in the next video. Later, Gators.
Cheers.